Welcome to another episode of the Capital Playbook. My name is Charles Williams. I am the owner and managing member of Pioneer Realty Capital. Today we have with us Mr. Ray John. Mr. John does something very, very interesting. He flips land. So today we get an opportunity to learn about him, learn what this land flipping thing is all about, and hopefully you and the audience will gain some knowledge and experience that will help you in your commercial real estate ventures. Mr. John, thank you so much for being with us. How are you today?
Very good, sir, Charles. Thank you for inviting. You have a big team there. That's a good thing. So,
Yeah, I tell you, your career is very interesting. We talked a little bit prior to filming that you used to flip cars, right?
right, I did. Yeah,
So,
in Hawaii. Yeah.
oh, in Hawaii, okay. So, and that business was geared around identifying used cars in high demand, and
Yeah,
then
very. Yeah, used cars and just very affordable ones, not the one you're
okay.
driving.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so you would find these vehicles, and then now, would you already have a buyer for those vehicles before you would buy them, and then turn around and resell them?
I don't. I didn't have any buyers, so I just buy them first and then I sell them. That's
Oh,
been
okay,
my model with land as well.
okay. So you went from flipping cars, and now you've moved into the real estate world, where you're using some of the same concepts, but you're applying it to land. Is that correct?
Absolutely, the margin is better and it's easier too. So
Really? Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us about that. How does that work from A to Z? If you're going to find a piece of property that you're going to flip.
So the number one is we need to find a market. So the same thing with commercial as well, right? So if you don't know where the market is, it's hard to flip. So we choose market based on the popularity and also the sold data. So if an area that has more than 40 sold for only land in the past 3 months,
Mhm.
that's good. That's good enough for us. And then we'll go in there and try to find a deal there.
Okay, so you'll go into a geographic area, maybe a city or a town, and you'll identify if there have been 40 parcels sold within the last month.
Last 3 months.
Last 3 months, okay. And
Yeah.
so that's the primary metric that you're looking at to determine that this is where I want to find land to flip. Is that correct?
Yes, and also I want to make sure that it's not a major city like Dallas. Those are very popular. It's very hard to find a deal.
Hmm.
But it's about 30 to 90 minutes away from that major city.
Okay, so you're looking kind of secondary, tertiary markets.
Yes.
You're identifying now. Is there a certain characteristic that that land would need to have in order for you to buy it?
The first one is, has to be buildable, and
Okay.
yeah, if it's not buildable, I'm not gonna buy that. And second thing, it cannot be some type of land, meaning wetland, landlocked, or like slope or near the cliff that you cannot
Mhm.
build. Yeah, anything not buildable, we're not buying. So
Okay. So when you go now, are you getting a topographical study or some to determine, and you mentioned that you want to make sure there's no slope, and what that does is that increases your costs if you're going to build because you're going to have a lot of
yeah,
dirt work. But sometimes, that can happen, and you not really know if there are slopes or pits or if it's graded improperly until you get a topographical study. So, do you generally get a topographical study before you buy these parcels?
I don't do that, but I do hire a lawyer to go there. I mean, sorry, a realtor to go there to check it out for me.
Hmm.
I need to make sure that the land is buildable, and if it is a slope,
Hmm.
I will have to see if there is a similar land was sold in the past. If it
Gotcha.
if even it's buildable and never have anyone sold a slope land nearby, I'm not gonna buy that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be the first one to try it out.
Okay. Now, since you're working with secondary and tertiary markets, those sometimes can have a reputation for being difficult in getting your zoning changed or maybe having your plating completed. Now, is that not really an issue for you since you're just buying the land for the purpose to flip and you'll let the other guy worry about that, or do you investigate that prior to purchasing?
I don't do too much of those. That's why I love the system. I don't need to
Okay.
worry about too much things. Yeah. So the builder needs to go ahead and do that thing, do those things.
Hmm.
But for single family homes, I think it could be a little bit easier for than the multifamily.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So multifamily, there's a lot more to examine, test, right? So.
So you're mainly buying parcels of land with the goal to sell that parcel to a single family developer.
Yes, or the multifamily developer. I do buy some multifamily land.
Hmm.
The land designed for multifamilies. I bought some in Nevada area, and those ones are worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, so when you purchase the land, do you do anything to add value to the land in terms of zoning or anything like that?
I absolutely do not do anything with the land. So
Mm.
uh, that's the good thing about flipping land because you can do it virtually anywhere
Hmm.
and from anywhere. So I don't do any type of value add. I guess I could, and after I done that, maybe I can get some more money.
Right.
Uh, but I'm most, not most, all of the land I flip, I haven't been there once.
Okay.
So there's no way I can go there and try to do it.
That's very interesting. So now, what would the typical size of your parcels be? Are you buying like 2 or 3 acres at a time, or are you buying 500, 600 acres at a time?
So for individual lots, mainly on the East Coast, there will be under 2 acres.
Okay.
So those acres are very small on the East Coast, but on the
Hmm.
West Coast, like Colorado, Arizona, I buy a little bit bigger, like 5 acres. Those areas, it's generally bigger lots.
Hmm.
So on that side, I have to target a little bit more.
Okay. And now, how are you funding the transaction? Are you just paying cash for the land, or and then once you own it, you turn around and sell it?
Yeah, at the beginning of my career, I had to, convince someone to fund my deals, right?
Hmm.
And so whenever I buy any land, I'll use my own cash or my friend's cash, so
Hmm.
that I have an edge, right? There are a lot of wholesalers, and they claim they're gonna buy it, but they don't want to put their own money.
Hmm.
But what I do is just go in there and tell the seller I have cash right now, I can buy that.
Hmm.
What's the best you can do, right? So
Okay. So your deal is all equity, right?
yes.
Okay. So you don't have to worry about obtaining debt, going and get a loan or anything like that.
No, because the bank don't like land. They
Right.
don't. They rarely fund land.
Hmm.
So that's why we have a niche, and a lot of like big investors like yourself, you
Hmm.
typically don't not interested in that, right? So right, so that's why we can survive.
Okay.
If
Okay.
if all the hedge fund come here and buy land, there's no
Right.
play for us. So,
Yeah, and you're buying a commodity that nobody's making any more of it, not
yeah.
unless you're in Dubai, I guess, where they make literally making land. Yeah. Um, well, that's pretty interesting. So what are your spreads typically? I mean, you go in and you buy, let's say, a 5 acre parcel, you pay 150,000 for it. Um, Again, that may be higher, that may be low. But what are you typically getting in terms of spreads? Are you selling it for 200,000, a 20% spread, 50, 40?
We see as high as sometimes 2,000% return.
What?
Uh, and
Really?
yeah, so
Well,
that's
sign me
when
up.
yeah, but sometimes it's not that big. But I'm trying to get at least 100% back. So
Really?
if I put money there and let's say I buy a land for 50 grand and
Hmm.
I tend to sell it sometime for 100 or sometime I can sell for 70. So it really depends on the deal. But
Okay.
typically I will not go into a deal unless I make 10,000 from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now, are these uh, parcels of land that you're purchasing, are they on market at the time where someone's offering them for sale, or are these off market opportunities where you just find the land, track down the owner, and say, "Hey, I'll give you some money for this."
Yeah, I only market to people own the land privately. So I never
Mm.
buy anything on the market.
Ah,
Yeah, whatever on the market is already very expensive, right? So
right.
yeah.
Okay. So I would imagine, most people would wonder, well, why would a person who has land, uh, you know, I would imagine they get a phone call, postcard, or a letter from you saying, "Hey, I'll buy this land." And instead of just going and getting a realtor and say, "Well, somebody wants to buy my land, let me see what the market is really paying." What would motivate them to say, I will just I'll sell that land to you.
Yeah, so there are a couple of reasons. The main reason I think would be, first of all, they're not knowledgeable enough to know how much their land is worth, or they
Mm,
think the land is worthless
mm,
because they bought it like 20 years ago for let's say 5 grand, and then market appreciate a whole bunch, and they just look at their land based on the assessed value, which is not very accurate for market value. So they're very happy to sell it on the assessed value from the county, right? So
okay.
that's a first thing. And the
Hmm.
second thing is people really don't have attachment to their land
Right.
emotionally. Think about a house, and when you buy a house, there's good memories there, and you have your kids or your wife. But what do you have with the land? Nothing, right? So, for example, if you're living in New York and you have a land in Florida, and every year, guess what? The grass grows.
Right.
And the city will warn you, hey, cut this grass, otherwise I'll fine.
Right.
And then you are like, there's no way I fly to Florida just to cut the grass. So I would just, ignore that. So, and then the city will be like, hey, I'm going to give you a ticket. It's called nuisance lien or whatever,
Mm,
right? And then you have to pay for that. So not only they do not have emotion attached to the land, sometimes they hate the land. I got like
right.
free land for free last year. They got my offer letter for $8,000. They tear it up and call me back and said, the land is yours. What do I do to give it to you? Right?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I sold each of them for 14, 16, and 15,000.
Wow.
So when did you hear last time someone gave you a house unless they're your dad, right? So
Right.
with land is possible.
Wow. Well, that's a very, very interesting business model. So I would
Right.
imagine you're using various data sources to identify land with absentee owners, where the land is in one state and the owner is in another state. Is that one of your ways of targeting these opportunities?
I used to do that. It's very smart. You can pick the low hanging fruits. But
Mm,
right now I don't do that anymore because I want to target to anyone, all the people. Uh, for example, recently I got a land and it's worth about 40,000. I bought it for 10 grand,
mm,
and the owner lives next door.
mm.
And yeah, and he told me the all the things wrong with the land. I was like, okay, you discount yourself right now. I didn't even need to
Right.
negotiate.
Right.
Yeah, he said my land don't have water. I said okay,
Mm.
and don't have power. I said okay, and then he said I'll do 10 grand. I said okay, let's do that. Right, so easy. Yeah,
Well, you're working some magic there. You know, you got people giving
yeah.
you land for free and talking themselves out of deals. I mean, that's pretty good. Now,
Yeah, so, yeah.
do you also find opportunities for folks whose property is in either has a tax lien or in danger of having a tax lien? Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, some people who own a lot of taxes, typically they don't want their land. And also
Right.
there's another delinquent, it's called HOA fees. So some
Ah,
land is inside the community, and for a newbie investor, if you're not careful, you could be burned by the HOA fees. You don't know
right,
how much it is, right? So
right.
got to
Because it's
be
not
careful.
necessarily disclosed, right?
Yes, and some seller intentionally hide it.
Right.
So yeah,
Wow. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I know in Texas and probably it's like that in a lot of other states where the HOA has a lot of authority, which
absolutely.
means they can even foreclose on the property. So yeah, that's a good point. So now you're buying land all over the United States. I heard you mention the East Coast. You mentioned Denver. Is this something that you're doing by making these searches online and then identifying these parcels?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's online. And sometimes the only thing I need to meet a person is a notary. And right now, if I need to meet a notary, I hire them to my house. For example, we
Mhm.
have a closing tonight. The notary will come here at 6:30. I haven't been out of my house for like a couple weeks, so it's a bad thing. I should go out sometime. But
COVID
you
is
can
over, man. Time to go outside.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
once you acquire these properties, how long does it generally take for you to sell it?
It depends. Right now it's a little bit slower. Uh, the same time last year was very good. I wish it was always like that.
Mhm.
We put a property on the market in the morning, afternoon, we got off, right? So
Really?
yeah. So but right now we gotta wait a couple of days, couple of weeks.
Mhm.
But our strategy is whenever we post a land for sale, we needs to be the lowest in the whole area.
Ah,
Yeah. So
okay.
yeah, that
So
all
so
based
you're
on
making a
how much.
100% return, but when you put the property on the market, it's the lowest price per foot or per acre in the entire market.
Absolutely.
So
And
you're making your money on the buy and not on the sell.
yes, that's that you don't want to buy and hold. That's not
Right.
my model, right?
Right.
And every time before I send the wire to my title company, I already know how much I can sell this for.
Mm.
So yeah, so I know how much I can make.
Now, your sales, are they all cash sales?
Sometimes they need to take a loan. For example, we just sold a property for 155,000.
Hmm.
That's a purely loan. It take a longer, but we bought that property for 70 grand.
Wow.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
do you offer financing for some of your properties?
I do not. I hate financing on terms. A lot of people teach that actually on the market.
Hmm.
They teach people to buy a land and sell on terms. I hate it. I mean, if you need cash flow, go to apartments. They
Hmm.
have very less default rate on apartments
Hmm.
because they need to live in them. But with land, they don't have to pay.
Ah, yeah. So yeah, they default all the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but then you get to resell it at a higher price, though, right?
They will add you a workload, so
Mm.
that's not gonna work for a long run because we try to go to many markets and grab cash, right? So
Hmm. So, how many transactions would you do in a typical year?
last year I did 100, almost a
Wow.
100. Yeah, this year we closed four already, and tonight will be the fifth one, and I already bought 11 land so far
Wow.
this year. Yeah,
Well, I think you're going to do 100 again this year or more, huh?
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to, yeah.
So in terms of dollar volume, what does that represent? So last year, in terms of what you bought dollar wise, what did that look like?
Uh, we buy typically land in between 15,000 to 250,000.
Wow.
That's my price range. So I will never pay more than that. I will never pay less than that.
Hmm.
I would not go to markets that the typical land is selling for under 15,000.
Okay, but so
Yeah.
if you were to add all of that up in terms of acquisitions you made last year, what would that total volume be?
You mean the
Yeah, with everything you purchased last year, how much would you think you spent in purchasing land?
I don't about close to half a million because
Okay,
our
half a
pro
million.
yeah, because our profit is 900,000.
Your profit was 900,000.
Yeah.
So your cost was about a half a million, and then you turn around and had 1.4 million in sales, which gave you a profit of 900,000.
Yeah, pretty much. And I
Wow.
think it's more than half a million. And I don't have the specific number, but it's somewhere around there. Yeah.
Wow. Well, man, what an interesting business. Now, what made you get into this? You like we said earlier, you're flipping cars, and then did you just have a dream one night and say, you know what, I should be flipping land,
Yeah.
or is that what happened?
No, I love freedom. I mean, I come from a country that have very little freedom
Right.
in China, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but always want to be anywhere and do things that nobody can tell me where you have to be, right? And with houses, I cannot do that because you have to stay in the local market.
Right.
But with land, you can be anywhere. Me and my wife went to Bahamas. I did 2 deals there. So
Wow.
you can be anywhere in the world to do this thing.
Wow.
Only if you have two things: American bank account and the US ID. You can be anywhere. Yeah. So
Yeah. Wow. Well, that is absolutely fascinating. Well, I tell you what, this has been one of the most interesting interviews I've done in a long time. Mr. Ray John, the land guy, the land flipper. So, thank you so much for being on our podcast show. I would love to have you back at some point in the future. And for our audience, I really hope that you benefited from this information. It's certainly very interesting for me, very interesting business concept. Until next time, we'd love to see you again on our show, Mr. John. And for our audience, please show your support for this show by liking and subscribing and hitting the bell so that you know when our next episodes are going to come. Until then, we look forward to being with you with another episode of the Capital Playbook.